does chef Pierre White mean when he says this?
And that Mother Nature is the artist.
Allow Mother Nature to be the artist.
Mother Nature is the true artist.
In this video, we're going to examine why he keeps talking about Mother Nature. What is in his background that led him to do this? Why he made the shocking turn into veganism and how that still continues to inspire him now. We'll do this through the medium of one of his recipes from the BBC Maestro series. I'm Gary from Big Spud and I'm fascinated with the character of chef Pierre White, the enfant terrible of the London dining scene in the 80s and 90s, who gave back his Michelin stars.
Marco has already announced that he wants to give back his 3 stars whether Michelin want them back or not.
And retreated to a simpler life.
The truth is, I never wanted to be a chef. I had dreams of being a riverkeeper.
Mother Nature is the true artist. He will say this every interview he can. Why is that? When he was a young boy, sadly his mother passed away. He retreated into hunting as a pastime, for eating, not for sport, and was utterly engrossed by it.
I did exactly the same as I did when I was 6 years old. I turned to nature.
This was further cemented by frequent trips to Italy as a child, and in spending time with his extended family, whether it be harvesting grapes or catching trout in the river. He truly fell in love with nature, and therefore hunting, game, fishing are all parts of his life now. These two factors heavily influenced him, and it's why he often says that Mother Nature is the true artist, and he hates it when people fuss too much with their food. But then in the early 2010s, Marco went vegan. Inspired by his daughter Mirabelle and her friends, not really consuming a lot of meat or being vegetarian, he thought he owed it to himself, as someone interested in food, to try it out.
For almost 1 year of my life, I was a pure vegan.
Over the course of 9 months, he eliminated meat from his diet and went fully vegan. After a few weeks of feeling lethargic, he started to notice the benefits through losing weight and sleeping better. As he says himself,
I lost 5.5 stone in weight. I slept better. I had more energy.
And now, even though he is not vegan, he has pushed a very hard vegetarian and vegan menu in his restaurants and maintains that he only eats meat 2 or 3 times a week. It's a foolish chef that doesn't encompass the full spectrum of diets and cuisines in the 2020s. So to fully explore this vegetarianism, we're going to be making his vegetarian lasagna. Note this recipe will be vegetarian, though it could easily be tweaked to make it fully vegan. Marco's decision to embrace veganism was more than just about food. It was an opportunity to reflect, to think, look again, to step back and rethink his values. That got me thinking about we all face moments like this in our lives. A few years ago, I was feeling the pressure of work life, social life, personal life, about how it all gets too much on top of you. It was difficult juggling the priorities I had. Well, the new year can be a time to make a fresh start. Sometimes it's easy to feel overwhelmed or stuck with all the things that life can throw at us, whether it's trying to make big changes or just balancing everything life throws at us. Having someone external can provide real perspective at times of change, and that's where therapy can really help. That's why I'm excited to share that this video is a paid partnership with BetterHelp, an online therapy platform. BetterHelp makes starting therapy easy. You just fill out a short questionnaire, and within a matter of days, you're matched with a credentialed therapist who's right for you. And if the match doesn't feel like a fit, you can switch therapists at no extra cost. No awkwardness, no hassle. It's fully online, making therapy more comfortable for you. If you've ever felt overwhelmed by expectations or like you're falling behind, a therapist can help you untangle those thoughts and develop tools to move forward on your own. Click the link in my description, betterhelp.com/bigspud for 10% off your first month and take your first step towards a fresh start. Much like a meat lasagna, we're going to make a vegetarian version, substituting all of the meat for very finely diced vegetables. And instead of lasagna, we're going to be using celeriac, this ugly little dude here. Now, I've raised celeriac before in other videos, and I get odd looks from people over the other side of the pond. This is also known as celery root, and I hear you can find it in some greengrocers. It's not essential, you can find other vegetables that do a similar job. I would argue swede or rutabaga, but celeriac has a slightly aniseed flavour the way that everything in the celery family does, that just forms a nice bite to the teeth. If you wanted to, feel free to use lasagna sheets, but the celery root is an interesting way to go. So we're going to clean it up, peel it, give it a little rub with lemon juice to prevent it discolouring, and then poach it for about an hour. So I've put my celeriac into a vacuum sealed bag and letting it simmer in water for about an hour. Marco insists on this so that it keeps the flavour all together, as opposed to just dumping it naked into the water where the nutrients and the flavour will come out. Now we're going to get on with a bit of veg prep, and there's quite a bit of it. We're going to dice and mince together onions, garlic, carrots, celery, more celeriac and cauliflower. And that's going to replace the minced beef or pork that you would usually have in this sort of dish. I'm going to dice them to all approximately the same size, so they're all sort of very roughly cubed. All the same size means we're going to cook at the same time. If you see a vegetable in here you don't like, you can substitute it for anything else. Marco's really keen that you make the dish your own. A little olive oil in the pan. And if you're not confident in your knife skills, I'm fairly sure Marco would recommend that you grate it. Most of this is about reducing water content. He talks about this all the time. Reducing the water content of vegetables so that the flavour isn't diluted. You're just getting to the sweet bit in the middle. And this is an interesting bit of prep for cauliflower. Again, shave it into slices and then cut across it. And this amount of vegetable here is going to easily feed 6 people, depending on if you serve side dishes with it. Left with a pleasing cube of cauliflower. And then with what I've got here, because cauliflower is such an irregular shape and has so much water, I'm just going to roughly chop it so that it essentially it dilutes away to nothing. I'm going to add 2 of the Marco favourites, some thyme and some bay. Present in just about every recipe Marco does. And you're going to keep everything moving so that everything has a chance to catch slightly on the bottom and start to evaporate. And finally some garlic. And so I ended up toning down the cauliflower, ended up quite a large one, so I put about half of it in, and already it's disintegrated to almost nothing. The cauliflower is so packed with water, it just evaporates straight out. Just give you a look at it there. So is it even? Is it perfect? No. Got big chunks. I'm okay with that. So after about 15 minutes of sweating down, I think those vegetables are where I want them. So now another ingredient, a tomato sauce, a pomodoro sauce. This is the last of a batch that I made a little while ago. I have a video all about that process up here, which you can watch, but here's a very, very quick version of how to make it. I'm just going to add that in. And obviously, unlike a meat dish, everything is as cooked as you want it to be. There's nothing wrong with eating this as it is, but I'm just going to let this tomato sauce give the dish some moisture and just act as a bind to bring it all together. I'm going to add some seasoning at this point because we've had no seasoning up to here. A little pepper, a little salt, that's all. This is where you could take it any direction you wanted, whether it's chili, diced chili, chili flakes if you wanted something spicy and a bit punchy. Equally, you could add a little bit more water, blitz it down for a perfectly good soup at this point too. Remove those herbs though. And obviously at this point equally, nothing to stop you serving this over pasta. Making a huge batch of this and portioning it for the freezer. And it'd be the base of a great meal. Even if you wanted to, you know, fry off some beef or pork or whatever, and then add your vegetables to it, you would effectively lower your meat content because you'd be bulking it out with vegetables, which I think, whilst not the letter of the dish, is very much in the spirit of the recipe. So I think my herbs have done enough now. So before I forget, and while I can still see them, I'm going to fish those out. Lots of rich tomatoiness, but still lots of grainy bite to that vegetable. It's cooked, no doubt, but it's concentrated. So I think at that point I'm going to turn it off and just leave it there. Just making a basic bechamel, an all-in-one style method from Marco. It's not the way I usually make it, but I'm going to trust the method. Just whisking in butter and flour, and then I'll be adding milk and a little nutmeg. With an all-in-one method, you have to keep it on the move and also not be scared. It feels a bit weird because you just dump stuff in a pan, but if you keep whisking, suddenly it will seize and come together. And so now my celeriac has had about 75 minutes simmering away in its little water bath, and even just the surface of it is covered with a delicious juice. Very tangy, very delicious, and it's going to make wonderful pieces. In an ideal world, I'll let this cool and then slice it, but I want to get dinner on, so I'm just going to don my rubber gloves so I can handle it and then just cut it into slices. So we've got our sliced celeriac there, and I've sliced it, in some cases not very well, about 5mm thick. And so now we can start our layering up. I'm grating over some pecorino at that point. This is not a vegetarian cheese, obviously substitute in as you see fit. And then the layering begins all over again. And that's now going to go in a low oven, 140, 150, for about 30 minutes. And after 30 minutes we have our lasagna. It's got that golden brown sheen that you're after, the tomatoey cheesy smells. It's what you want. Now just to leave it for a minute just to settle down. Well, we need to cut into it, right? And see what we've got. Hardest part, of course, is getting that first piece out. Let's hope it stays neat and tidy. Well, I've been quite lucky. We've got all our lovely layers, our white sauce, our celeriac layers, our vegetables. How does it eat? It's incredibly satisfying. Very sweet from all the tomato sauce and the vegetables, but it has a gutsiness to it. You know, there's plenty of MSG being created by the tomatoes in there, so it makes it really, really tasty. It's a bit of a cliche to say it, but you literally don't miss the meat. You've got a nice unctuous tomato sauce in there, packed with goodies, and it's really tasty. Those celeriac layers also, you know you're not eating pasta, you just got something with a little bit of crunch, bit of bite to it. I don't want to, not crunch like hard, but just it's firm to the bite. And of course you've got cheese and all sorts on top. It's absolutely delicious. What a fascinating way to look at Marco Pierre White's trip into veganism. I hope you found that interesting. If so, I'd really appreciate it if you hit the like button or share it with a friend that you think would like this recipe, and I'll catch you next time.
Mother Nature is the true artist.